the serpent seed as a whole. But on one level, it's absolutely true that Eve copulated with what is called an Nakash, which is a heavenly being, which is an order of angel, and created the first hybrid called Cain. Now that's pretty well established, flushed out. That's not the scope of this teaching. But what's more interesting to the story that we need now, in my opinion, to grow into is the understanding how Eve was infiltrated, because this is the whole point, in her higher levels of consciousness, how this progression happened, and is still going on today. If you think that this is humans and angels aren't copulating and fornicating today, well then you know, really living in la-la land. We, the adults, the elect, we need to have this understanding on this level, because somebody's got to be able to be the adult in the room to tell the children. Oh my gosh. So now this is from an apocryphal text. This is from Enoch. Oh, let me go to this. Enoch. All right. So again, this idea of the Nakash and Eve, who was a serpent, who, let me jump ahead because while I'm on that, this is from the Legends of the Jews, which is a great book that I like to read, and I've always recommended it. Here's a quote. It says about the serpent. Furthermore, Elohim spoke to the serpent, all right? But you got to understand there's two, Hasatan is involved in this, and the serpent, all right? There is, this is so, I can't go, there's two things, there's flux, there's male and female going on in the story, archetypes. The serpent is also referred to as a snake, which is an animal, and I think he's referred to as a camel in other literatures I've read. But the point is, you understand, it's not just the serpent. He was enlisted, he was chosen, so to speak, he was infiltrated, he was used by a higher level being called Hasatan to be part of this whole scheme to bring Eve and Adam down, to operate according to the lower worlds, to get them to fall from their elevated status and understand, and to, hibernate. It's before their allotted time. Okay, so I just read that quote that came, that Clement, that they were copulated before their allotted time, and this is the point. Yes, animals copulate at a point in time, but so do humans. See, this is the point. We do, but ours is supposed to be in league with Elohim. See, there's some really deep stuff here. This is why, if you're going to be anti-Semitic and throw out rabbinic Judaism, you're never going to put it to, you're throwing about 80% of what is really helpful to understanding out the window, because they have preserved it. But the point is, the rabbis have always taught, and I've never really seen this kept anywhere else, saying why, Sabbath, on the eve of Sabbath is the best time, one of the best times, or Sabbath is the best time for men and women in a marriage bed to come together to produce a progeny, because it's a holy day. It's holiness. All the gates, all the heavenly gates, oh my gosh, are open. And if they're in the right frame mind, it's the story of they would to try to have the most righteous, holy children you can. You gotta love your soul, people. You gotta love the souls of your future children enough to understand. See, I want to cry again. Listen, I'm not a perfect person. I didn't know all this when I was young. Oh my gosh. But if the elect can grasp a hold of these deeper truths, all right, we have to. All right, wait a minute. I get so caught up in this. Furthermore, God spake to Elohim spoke to the serpent, saying, I created thee to be a king over all animals, cattle, and beasts of the field, but you weren't satisfied. Therefore, thou shalt be cursed above all cattle, above every beast of the field. I created thee upright upon your, but thou wast not satisfied, thou shalt go on their belly. Thou didst seek to cause the death of Adam in order to espouse his wife. Therefore, I put enmity between thee and the woman. Now, I have to say this. These are code words. We're not talking about literal animals. Like when he was made king of, this is why when I get back to my unlocking the keys, the beast, beast. See, it's so important to understand this stuff. He's talking about other angelic hosts, other armies. Adam was made the king over, this is the point, over all the animals. Over Adam, when he was finally put down here in this lower level of Asiyah, after it was all built and created and everything was ready, he was made king of, well, Kut, or king of, he was the king of, in this kingdom, in this domain. All right, that's the whole point. The serpent was made the king over lower, you know, we're here too, over the animals. See, this is how they're using these words. You have to understand the hierarchy. They use these words to denote hierarchy and different programs running in these entities, living souls. There's so much information being passed on. This is part of the keys to the kingdom that we can understand. But the point is, he was king over the animals. Adam was king over him. But then it got flipped around, right? And that's what we know as the whole story. Okay. Now, this in Enoch, in the book of Enoch, in chapter 10, 9 through 12. It talks about there's always been a forbidden union between an Israelite and a heathen or a Gentile. I mean, we know this is the storyline that was always. This explains why Israel, we were fanatic about their bloodline, and it's on so many levels, so that a Moshiach could come through, a bloodline that was pure, all right? And because they were a covenanted people, they were part of the body. You know, we think, I guess the thing is, in the New Testament, most Christians believe, oh, the body of Elohim is brand new, and we're the only people in it. You know, that's their arrogance. Oh my gosh. No, the body of Elohim, and it's been around from the very beginning. That was the first thing, okay? And so, okay, so the forbidden union between an Israelite and a heathen or a Gentile, all right? This is why, and why it says, and you'll see this in the Talmud, you'll see these quotes there, they'll say, you know, it's forbidden for an Israelite to, basically to have sex with a beast, with a Gentile, and they'll call Gentiles beasts. Well, if you understand what they're saying, okay, and this is so deep on so many levels. The program that was running in Israel, let me put it this way, the covenant at Sinai basically put back into place, into running operation, Windows running system that Adam had before the fall, the Neshama, the higher level connection. They were reconnected back up to the higher levels of the Godhead where they had fallen, okay? And, you know, Yeshua, who came for the lost sheep, you know, the house of Israel, we now are getting grafted back into that covenant, to that, and operating at the higher levels of the Neshama, of the soul, okay? But it says in Ezra 2, okay, let me just read the whole thing. It says the forbidden union between an Israelite and a Gentile can be forgiven, okay? But in Ezra, it says, but not so between an angel and a woman. Now think about that for a minute, okay? So puts a whole new spin on flee fornication, okay? Flee sexual immorality. This is, and we know this, the more and more people understand the ancient world, especially the pre-flood world, and then what happened up again with Nimrod and in the early ages and others, and which has been underground, is this has been going on, okay? Knowingly, in secret societies, in pagan mystery religion societies, okay, have always known this and kept this quite lively and alive through the, and just by having people with no concept of the root systems and the different programs in soul life, it's all a mess, okay? It explains a lot about the Jews' behavior. I mean, there's a lot going on in these explanations, but this would make sense, but not between an angel and a woman, because you are combining totally different dimensional species, which Yah said in Genesis 1, everything was to reproduce after its kind, okay? Those are serious issues. It's like putting it's like, pouring poison down the drain. So the flow and the flux, the force, is totally demonic. Okay, pour poison down the drain. Okay, which is that's what it says, the poison of the ass. This is literally what, when you have these understandings, these are what the words are saying over and over and over again. Okay, now, this is from another apocryphal text. It says, Lord Yeshua, okay, this is Lord Jesus Christ, under whom nothing is impossible, who, when the world was broken by the tree of concupiscence, okay, didst restored again in thy faithfulness by the tree of the cross. Now, when I first read that, I had to look up concupiscence, because it's just not a modern word. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I've heard it, I don't know what it means. Well, look it up, and basically, it means strong sexual desire. It means lust. So in other words, the world was broken, okay? The harmony between all the different solars, just the beauty of was broken by the tree of, which would be, seriously, by the fall in that program, which was just one of them. That was like the foot in the door, okay, lust. But that brought in every evil work, okay, if you understand something. The tree of the knowledge of good and evil is a domain, a place, a concept. The left side, you can understand the tree of life, but it is where, everything has to exist somewhere, all right? Everything has to originate. So there are angels, there were animals. So the serpent was an animal, was a beast, who was created with this program. Now, it sort of makes all sense. I mean, and he was lusting after Eve. I mean, and there's many levels to this thing. Whew, we can't go there, but just get this. Concupiscence means lust, right? So this is, like I said, everywhere. Okay? Now, here is from the book of the Zohar, okay, which, again, I mean, the battle is fear. I'll tell you what, the battle against a whole new blow up against the Zohar, against Jewish mysticism or Kabbalah, against the strain that the house of Judah has kept, the pure stream. Gentile teachers have the hardest time of any people on the planet getting to that truth. I swear. Really prominent person today in Ephraimite Hebrew roots teaching, has a whole published blowing up about the Kabbalah. Oh my gosh, to even be associated in certain camps with the Kabbalah, which is such an ignorant. You just have no clue what you're talking about, and you're basically anti-Semitic. But the point is, I just want to quote this person who should know better, who basically said, and I have no respect. I said, basically, I have not ever read the Zohar. I will never read the Zohar. I have never read the Talmud, and I will never read the Talmud. Now, how do you expect to be? That's like me saying, okay, I want to give you all the esoteric, the keys to the kingdom, the esoteric knowledge, but I'm never going to read outside the 66 book canon. Nothing on, what's up with that? How can you be so ignorant? I mean, seriously, that is pure spiritual blindness and ignorance and arrogance. See, we don't understand who Judah is. Most Ephraimite teachers today still do not understand, get off my soapbox, who Judah is, their birthright, and who you're dealing with. Okay? Oh my gosh. But anyways, how can somebody say, even intelligent people, if you want to give a critical exegesis on something, you have to read the material. To just listen to what other people say. I mean, this is the problem we've had, this game of telephone, of repeating what other people say, and the other people are no more experts than a man on the moon. Okay, they have no clue what they're talking about. Okay, so in the Zohar stresses this legend that demons originated, and this is in sexual congress between humans and demonic powers. Now, the Nefesh, I know that's what it is. It refers to him as a camel in some spots, because a camel is a code word, again, for a demonic, unclean animal. Donkeys and camels, I'm pretty sure, okay? Could be just donkey. Maybe I'll figure out if I'm wrong, and I'll put a little disclaimer. But the point is, these are used specifically because it is telling you that these are lower angelic hosts, angels, living souls, because if you look at, they're a living soul. They have Nefesh Chai. But this brought in, we know that before the flood, this is to understand what demons came from, this union, okay, of fallen angels and the humanoid species, Cainites, yes, and mingling also with Adamics that have the breath, just made a mess of everything, okay? All the programs that were just totally out of kilter happened again after the flood. It still happens today. It's ramping itself as it was in the days of Noah, so it is again today. We can just see this. I mean, our world is getting crazier and crazier by the moment, okay, because we are seeing this where people are bringing in souls of just the most bizarre and varied root system, okay? Now, this is in the Zohar, okay, so this is a very established principle. Okay, so and the Zohar has a lot to say about it. If you're an Ephraimite teacher and you think you can find a lot of information in non-Jewish or non-Christian, original source material and just listen to the mythologies of the world, you'll never get to the pure, deep, truly, the mystery level that's hidden in the text, okay? But let me say that this offers a reasonable explanation as to why all occult ceremonies stress three things: drugs, incantations, which is an expressed hatred towards God, because a lot of times in incantations, if you read they curse God. They take songs, holy songs or holy verses of it, and they twist the words and they actually end up cursing. It's very strange. Okay, and bizarre sexual practices. Okay, this is over and over and over again. This is in the Wisdom of Solomon. It talks about, again, these practices always come in where there is a breakdown of the moral underpinnings, and when the other side kind of gets its way, because it is through these lifestyle choices and the action that brings in other souls. That's what I alluded to last week. Souls that come from other fallen dimensions, okay? Because you have to understand, to the pure, all things are pure, okay? We pursue knowledge, wisdom, and understanding according to the pureness of the Ruach HaKodesh. And our actions should be, if you're like, without holiness, no one will really be able to see or hear Elohim. No one will see God. Meaning you can't really penetrate the higher levels of the understanding of Elohim. You can't get near him if you have a dark soul. It just can't happen. Okay? It's an oxymoron. It cannot happen. That is why sexual purity, moral purity, a life full of good needos is absolutely essential to revelation and to the Olam Haba, the future life, to having a life in the world to come, okay? Because, all right, but let me just say this. We caution you against this principle, okay? See, this gets into when you understand the concept of male and female, like I said, in the archetypal things. What is going on when you're combining male and female forces, and you realize what you're bringing in, because everything has to be generated according to that principle. But I don't care whether you're making a computer program with X and O's, whether you're making another human being, or whether you're even cloning or making a hybrid. You've still got to take the same building blocks, to put together. So it says that there are many base, pernicious, and degrading, lustful theories, teachings, and practices out there, all right, which are taught under fanciful titles and which are a prostitution of the general principle of gender. Such base revivals of the ancient infamous forms of phallicism tend to ruin mind, body, and soul. This theology has the truth of, and this is sort of a kind of rebuttal against those who would practice, it says in Revelation, it says those who are sexually immoral and practice magic arts. Why do you think those things go together? All right, like the Zohar says that you always get these things: drugs, incantations, and bizarre sexual always sort of go together in this category of fallen, depraved human action. But it's human action with a very wicked, evil, nasty twist and intent to it. Okay, so we have ever sounded the warning against these degraded teachings which tend toward lust, licentiousness, and perversion of nature's principles. If you seek such teachings, you must go elsewhere, for that you will find nothing of them along these lines. To the pure, all things are pure. To the base, all things are base. That is not the end of a Zoharic Jewish sect. They know. See, so anybody who's, oh, come on, they're practicing back. No, they're not. They're not, people. There, you will find, oh my gosh, it really spelled out. All sorcery and witchcraft is forbidden by Torah. It doesn't change no matter what text you're reading, okay? Now, does that mean that everybody who reads it, doesn't go on and sin in some category? Of course not. Okay, but the principle, the overarching, the law, the Torah on the whole subject matter is written in heaven, and you can't change it. Okay, now getting into the beast soul. Let me just read this one, sort of jumping in on this, on about the body of Christ, the Adam caveman, that it was set up before the foundations of the world. He has foreknown us, your soul, okay? I just want to read this because this is a fragment 35, under hymns, liturgies, and wisdom poetry. They have so many little fragments that they can sort of translate that are very fragmented. They don't know where they go or come, but it's out of the Dead Sea Scrolls, which is Essene Jewish mystical writings. I totally understand it, and I do trust that basically the mindset. It says here, Elohim shall sanctify some of the holy as an everlasting sanctuary for himself. What do you think that's talking about? An everlasting sanctuary would be somebody who is everlastingly part of the body of Elohim. All right? And purity shall endure amongst the cleansed. They shall be priests, his righteous people, his host, which is the word armies, his servants, the angels of his glory. And they shall praise him with marvelous ... hymns, and, but that is the point. See, this is why the elect, those who can get there, who can run on the Neshama soul program, the mature, there's so many ways the word uses this, will be priests. We're going to use righteous people. We're his armies. We're his servants. We're his angels. His angels is a word, it means spiritual beings. We will inherit the highest level of honor in the kingdom of Elohim. Choose you this day. Whatever. Go for the base things or stick for the holy. Now, I have to get onto this. This is the Gospel of the Nazarenes. The Gospel of the Nazarenes is, we don't actually have the text per se. We have fragments of these. This text is referred to in very reliable early church father text sources. So we know it was a document that was circulating. We just don't have the document. And all we have, I think they've scraped together like 70 fragmentary statements from great Origen, Eusebius, Jerome, Hesappius. These are some of the major players in the early development. All right. Now, it says here in one quote, love you one another and all the creatures of Elohim. See, isn't that interesting? Already you have a dichotomy. Love you one another. We're told to love one another at the brotherly love, meaning those who are the brothers, we're of the same family. We know you have the same genetics. We're of the higher, we have a Neshama soul with each other. We share that, okay? And all creatures, but not all creatures have that level of, see, one thing you understand, just because a creature doesn't have a living soul, creature would be the word, living soul, doesn't have the higher Neshama program, doesn't mean that they're inherently evil. That does not, okay? There's many programs, many parts that are perfect and used in this way, that are perfectly loyal to the Father and perfectly beautiful and used by him, they're just not granted to be part of, they were just not created to be part of that order of the Neshama program, okay? The breath, okay? Anyways, it says, love one another and all the creatures of Elohim. If that wasn't true, why would they have to sort of state two different categories of living souls? I mean, I write it, it's right there. Yet I say to you, not all are men who are in the form of man. Oh, well, spoiler alert, people, this is the point. Oh, God. There are many who walk among us who are not men. And men is the word, if I had the original Hebrew here, we would probably I'll check it, but you can counter check these, and I have a ton of them in their context. Okay, so let me say that again. Not all are men who are in the form of man. Okay, so many people in this world are not functioning in this world according to the Neshama, the breath of Elohim. I mean, that really should be a no-brainer. I don't think when we love mankind and, love one another and just everybody's the same, just go out there and free love on everybody and just, no, you have to, don't check your brains at the door. Yes, we are to love one another and all the creatures of Elohim, but don't lose sight of the truth, okay? Elohim is of the truth. The enemy is always trying to insert lies, he's always trying to muddy the water. Oh, anyways, okay, but let me just, are they men or women in the image of Elohim whose ways are of violence, of oppression, of wrong, who choose a lie rather than the truth? No, truly, till they are born again and receive the Ruach of love and wisdom within their hearts, okay? Then, only then, are they sons and daughters of Elohim, all Israel. And being of Israel, they are Elohim, they are children of Elohim. And for this cause came I into the world, and for this I have suffered at the hands of sinners. This is a quote of Yeshua saying. See, so, there's so much theology on this, but what is so interesting is that, again, you will know a tree by their fruit, and we have to understand this. This is why, again, marriage partners, and there's so many. You should look for a marriage partner, someone who has good midos, good character traits. The only way, oh my gosh, and you need to get, I could moralize about this, but I think that you can take this understanding and, do your own moralizing and understanding how important this is and how far we have fallen in our culture today, okay? And like I said, not on the flip side, not to say that we do not serve an Elohim of mercy, but you must recognize your sin, understand there's a problem before you can get a rescue, right? Why would you can't rescue somebody. You don't rescue people who don't think that they need rescuing. Those words are oxymoron to each other. Okay, the Gospel of Philip. That was from the Gospel of Nazarenes. This is the Nazarenes, and that's an early word for the early church, Jewish, quote-unquote Christian. Yeshua was a Nazarene. Doesn't mean Paul was accused of being of that sect of the Nazarenes. This is historically pointing to a group of people who had this mindset of the Messiah, of the Moshiach, okay, that Yeshua was a Moshiach. Gospel of Philip, the bodily forms will not deceive him. Now this is again talking about the Moshiach. Bodily forms will not deceive him, but rather he will observe the disposition of the soul of each one in order to speak with him. In the world there are many animals made in human form. These he is accustomed to recognize. While each person appears to be in a human form, the wise man will not be deceived and will understand that in the case of the vast majority of people, they are brute beasts. Okay? See, because you are what you think, and this gets into the whole demonic oppression, demonic possession, and it gets into a deeper understanding of how these entities are able to constantly be in our world because they feed. Okay, feed is a word on many levels, but Eve and they ate. Ate is a code word for a sexual reproduction process that just transpired. And it's called eat because you partake. You're bringing something into yourself. The same thing. If the ejaculating male is putting something into the female womb, there you are partaking of something. All right. See this whole. They had to clean the language up a little bit, all right, because you cannot just have this, very raw, real. You don't teach this to children. That's why it's for the mature. But the mature are supposed to understand the code, would have the keys to the kingdom, so they can rightly discern and divide the word of truth. Okay, but the point is, I didn't make it up. Here we have too that talks about how the world, there are many animals made in human form. Okay, even Paul said, you look at, I have fought Bruce beasts at Ephesus. That's what he's talking about. He's talking about these really low level, but who can be saved. That's why you always preach it. I'm just trying to give a truth here. I'm not making a judgment call on it. We have to be wise as serpents in the sense, but harmless as doves. It says that Nefesh was the most skilled. He was, and on one level that means he was the most skilled at sorceries in the sense, and this is what the Moshiach, there's a certain people to read people's souls. Okay, there's so much deeper understanding in all this, but I didn't make that up. Okay, so that's where it is there. I had, this is from Bereshit 4, and the man knew Eve, his wife. Okay, and this is Rabbi Abba. This is from, again, the Zohar in chapter 60, and it talks about who knows whether the spirit of man, this is the point, this is why I told you last week, the program of Ruach. I'm just dealing with kind of the Nefesh soul, which is a very, the lowest level compromised soul process programs that runs in our bodies, down here on earth, it's in our blood, and it just consumes us most of the time to be animalistic in our appetites and our actions, okay? But praise Elohim, he has made a way. You get saved, you get born again, you get that Ruach now. We can have a Ruach come into us in a very literal Ruach. See, I understand that the spirit can penetrate. The spirit is not bound by walls, and doors and things. The Ruach just comes and goes. You can't keep the Ruach out. I mean, this is the whole point. And I just try to say this. Who knows whether the spirit of man goes upwards and the spirit of the beast goes downwards to the earth? Because it is the Ruach that will either, if a person operates their Nefesh and cries out, and with the Ruach elevates their Nefesh program into a higher order of operating, the Ruach will bring them up. Conversely, if they want to use this whole process and just continue to bring their sense ability, their sense consciousness down and down and down into the lower levels to be a beast, that can be accommodated too. So like I said, the Ruach is just a barometer going up and down. And this is why the story of Joseph, and this is what is so interesting. I mean, okay, so story of Joseph, one of the sons of Jacob, the younger son, who was sold into slavery in Egypt. His whole life is an archetype of sort of the lost tribes and sort of this thing. And there's a beautiful story, allegories that can be made compared between Joseph, lost in a demonic kingdom that is, and this is what I'll tell you, that Egypt they were master sorcerers. They were just like over the top Mitzrayim. Ham's sons just went back, after the flood, after all the magic arts and the sorceries and the ways to use this knowledge to control, really, and control the souls of men and control the forces of nature. I mean, there's just so much in there. But anyways, Joseph is an archetype for what is known as the Sephiroth of Yesod. Yesod is equated to the male phallus, okay, or the reproductive parts of the human body. I mean, Adam came in as a human body, so it's got to have it somewhere, and it's got to have sort of this concept of a reproductive part, okay? So it's very deep stuff, but it actually makes a lot of sense. But the story with Joseph is, his story is, on one level, is a story of perfectly controlling your sexual energy and rising above it, all right, and not succumbing with the whole all of the story of Potiphar's wife, and all of her sexual advances towards him. And not just her. If you read, he was a very good-looking, young guy in a prominent position here, and there were a lot of women. It talks about women would be, falling over the balconies, throwing down their rings and their jewels and their phone numbers, call me. I mean, some of this stuff is really real, and a lot of times in the literature you get some very real, a lot more information. Anyways, Joseph was a perfect example of a person who can overcome all sexual temptation, and that is why it's so heavy in the story of the patriarchs. Joseph is a patriarch. His story is so important, and again, he represents a story in the lost tribes of people still who, you might lose your Bible, you might lose your way, but there's innate programs in us. If you want, and this is the whole point, the lost tribes might have be choked. Their original flux, that connection on Mount Sinai, yes, can be kind of strangled today, but some of it can get through, and there have always been righteous Gentiles. There have always been people who have been able to rise above the fallen pagan cultures of the nations and shine like light. That is a large part of the story also told in our text. There's so many levels on this thing. But, there's so much I didn't even touch on. The last point I want to make, these get so long, but I have one point to make, because, see, we need to understand, first of all, what's going on, because the demonic always rules before the light. So all of this total sexual degeneration is prophesied to happen, because that's what happens, and it's a spiral. It's like a snowball. But the more you lose the original understanding, the more you descend into darkness. The more you descend into darkness, the more darkness you create. I mean, it's a snowball effect, okay? But one thing we do have to understand, and this is another whole teaching which I can't get into, the whole concept of what Paul was trying to tell the Gentiles. You can keep Torah. You have to keep Torah. We all have to keep Torah. The lawlessness in the Gentile church is a real problem. That's a whole other teaching. You must keep the commandments at very high levels. The commandments in and of themselves are benchmarks, okay? You can't lose sight of that. You can't lose your way. You got to understand what the Bible defines as adultery, what it defines as fornication. That's why one of the largest categories, one of the 10 commandments, the largest category, one of them is sexual sins, all right? There's a ton, and there's so many different kinds. Oh my gosh. It covers so many things, but this is a huge, huge area of human involvement in this level of asiyah. You can't get away from it. Okay, so the point is, good mitos are good character traits. The point of following Torah, knowing Torah, striving to keep Torah. Mature people are not perfect people. That's why it's a bad translation. But they can get, it says in John, 1 John, it says that the mature believer can, will, and should cease from willful sin. That's a big understanding. You are expected to get control of your Nefesh soul life. That is baseline one of Sadiq, school of the righteous and holy, okay? This is something Gentile Christianity, they just better open your eyes and understand it and get it together and all that, because there's way too much lawlessness, and it's not taught, understood, or taught properly, but I can't go there. I want to explain for those who really are beginning to understand the larger picture of Torah, what Torah represents, the law. Good mitos, character traits, are the foundation, and they're the root openings to the higher intellectual soul, or the Neshama soul. So the Neshama soul is sometimes called that. You, by good mitos, good character traits, by keeping, Torah at high levels, you are almost guaranteeing yourself that you are coming under fluxes and flows, divine energy sources that are coming down and protecting you. See, it's so almost scientific in a way. I mean, the laws of nature and the spiritual laws really do operate, and you can't, you reap what you sow. It's such a principle. So if you're sitting under a demonic flow and everything, and this is the problem with AI in the end of the day, all the information coming into these young kids is so devoid building good, biblically based, sound mitos or character traits based upon what the Bible says is the benchmark. You know, situational ethics is what there's a benchmark, okay? So this higher soul, the Neshama, depends on good mitos in the middle soul of the Ruach to be able to perform or receive the good spiritual energy. Now, this is the last thing I have to explain because this is so important. So it says that the Nefesh and the body need each other because, okay, you need a body to do mitos, to do, okay, they do need each other. And in one sense, when we get totally redeemed and out of this, get all these fallen viruses out, it's going to be very beautiful and very safe to have bodies, immortal bodies, in this dimension of physicality when it gets elevated and it gets out of its death spin cycle. Okay, it's going to be lovely. It's going to be lovely, and we can do this. But what's important people understand is that they build on one another and they fall in line with one another. Okay, so a lot of people people don't get answers to prayer because they're over here doing a certain kind of actions, like way outside of good mitos or and then they want the divine flux and flow of blessing to come. They don't go crooked. Let me put it this way: they're straight. We got to make everything straight. Oh, so I hope that sort of makes sense. That you have to understand. Let me say this again: good mitos, which is good character traits, which is the foundation of Torah. All right, is important. Not from a sense of just don't do this and don't do that. It's because these produce the root openings. They give us the openings to the higher spiritual energies of blessing. All right, so if you're not under that rain, so to speak, you're not under that cloud that's going to rain that blessing, and you're over there doing, wicked prayer, it can't do it. Rain does not fall, at a right angle. It falls straight down. So it goes from our Neshama, it goes from the highest heavens blessings on down into our Ruach. Our Ruach will bring it down into our bodies, our Nefesh soul life. But conversely, you have to take that Neshama soul life, you've got to clean it up. And we do have the ability. This is why we call on Elohim. We can't do it ourselves, but he can do it for us. He will give us everything that we need. That's what grace is. He will give you what you need to get on top of it, okay? So you go from your Nefesh to your Ruach, which will bring you up to your Neshama soul, the breath life, the highest functioning communion and place of the Olam Haba, the world to come. So, there's just so much in this. I don't know if I do a good job or not. Part of it is we just have to persevere and work at our salvation until Moshiach comes, which is going to be soon and very soon. And may you be under the rain cloud of his blessing. Shalom.